Welcome, fourth graders. This week is week 3, and we will be completing a through course task called Bundles of Joy. Because we are learning from a distance and we're doing it online, most of the thinking and completion will be done by me on this video. I need you guys to pay attention to the video and attempt to understand what it is that we're going to be talking about. And I'm going to go through it slowly, and hopefully by the end of the week you can complete a small portion of this TCT independently. So let's get started. The learning target for this particular assignment is I can analyze and interpret data about relationships between animal size, gestation period, and lifespan. So we're going to be talking about little bundles of joy of certain species and comparing that to the size of the species and then also to the lifespan, or how long do they normally last living. So before we can get started on any of this stuff, we've got to talk about some vocabulary, because if we don't get through the vocabulary, we won't know what we're talking about. So I'm going to switch over here to my 4th grade science journal. This is Mrs. Hopkins' science journal. This was from last week when we learned about the scientific method. This slide is for this week. And notice the title says Bundles of Joy TCT, and it has the date up at the top. I filled in this journal page with some vocabulary that we're going to need to know in order to complete this TCT. The first word is gestation. And gestation means that's the period of time that a mammal carries her offspring or babies inside her body before giving birth. Okay? That's the gestation period. Some people, for humans, we call it the pregnancy period, just to relate that word gestation to something that you all are a little bit more familiar with. So it's the period of time that a mammal carries her offspring or babies inside her body before giving birth. Incubation is the time needed for any particular process of development to take place. So that's a very fancy word. So let's just talk about that. For an example, that's going to be the length of time that a turtle eggs, that's the turtle eggs to hatch is the incubation period. So once the turtle lays the eggs, the incubation period is how long it takes for those eggs to hatch. So gestation is for mammals. Incubation would be for those laying eggs. Okay? The lifespan is the average length of a life of a kind of organism. So we're going to be talking about the lifespan from birth to death of how long certain organisms, what's their normal lifespan or their average length of life. When you analyze something, that just means that you're going to study something closely and carefully. Pattern. For this particular assignment, we're going to be using the word pattern, and it's going to be a series or sequence that repeats. So what are the patterns that you see in relation to the gestation or incubation period versus the size of the animals versus their lifespan? And then the last thing that I have on our science journal is bar graph. Okay? And we're going to be completing a bar graph. And a bar graph is a chart or a representation of data using bars or strips. So we're going to be completing a bar graph during this TCT assignment. So I'm going to go ahead and go over to the assignment. But before I do that, I'm going to have these definitions available to you where you will need to take them and put them into your science journal. My students have their science journals in their Google Drive with a star on it. So they can always go to their Google Drive, which is this triangle. They can go to their starred items and find their science journal. They'll go to the next clean page, which should be after last week's definitions. They'll create a text box and get these definitions inside of their science journal. I will show you how to do that in just a minute. So this is what the TCT looks like. This is the first page where I wanted to put the learning target and the standard on there. This is the official TCT. So let's talk about this through course task, Bundles of Joy. This is where you'll put your name and date. And then let's just read about what's going on. What do we have to think about? So this says, scenario. Students observed chickens hatching from eggs in their classroom. They noted that it took 22 days from the time the chickens laid the eggs until they hatched. The students learned that the length of time it takes an organism to develop before being born is called the gestation period, known as incubation period of the organism that hatches from an egg. Students wondered if all animals have a gestation period of 22 days. The class researched the gestation period of the animals shown below. The students recorded their findings in the following table. Next, they created a bar graph based on the information in the table to show the relationship between the size of the animal and the animal's gestation period. So let's look at that data. Study the information provided in the two graphs and then answer the following question. This data table has the animal according to size. So we have a rat, a chicken, cat, dog, monkey, a human, a horse, an elephant, and a whale. Now over here is the average gestation period, or how long whether it be the gestation period where the baby is inside the animal growing or within an egg. So for a rat, the average gestation period is 21 days. A chicken is 22. Cat, 63. Dog, 63 days. A monkey is 205. A human is 278 days. A horse is 336 days. An elephant is 624 days. And then it says a whale is 456 days. And then they took this data and they put it in this bar graph. So I want you to stop and think. What do you notice about the size of the animal versus the number of days that has with their average gestation period? Stop and think. One thing I notice is we're going from small to big, and we have 21 days all the way up to the largest for this elephant, 624 days. Then I also notice that they classify a whale being larger than an elephant. But if you look over here with the average gestation days, the elephant is carrying their offspring longer than the whale. When you come over here to this data, you can see how our bars are getting longer because there's more days that it takes for the gestation period based on the size of the animal. Describe any patterns you see between the animal's size and the length of the animal's gestation. As students discussed their findings, one classmate wondered aloud about the lifespan of the animals in the chart. They wanted to know how long the animals lived. This prompted other students to research the average lifespan of each animal recorded on the chart. Their findings are organized in the data table shown below. The students decided it would be easier to interpret the information provided in the table by creating a bar graph using the same information, so they started a bar graph. Using the information in the student's data table, complete the bar graph and compare the average lifespan of the animals. Here is the same list of animals, but this time over here in our data chart, this has the average lifespan in years. So what this information is showing is that a rat lives about 1.8 years. A chicken, 8 years. A cat and a dog, 10. A monkey, 12. A human, 67. Horse, 20. Elephant, 30. And a whale, 80. So what we'll have to do is put this data and mark it into this bar graph, create a bar graph. And then it says, study the bar graph you completed. Consider any patterns that may be evident between the gestation period of the animal, which animals are listed by the shortest gestation period to the longest, and the lifespan of the animal. Record your observations after analyzing the information in the average lifespans of organisms bar graph. This is where it will record our observations. And then the last page is the page that you will be completing independently. So let's talk about that. After analyzing the data in both bar graphs, the gestation period of animals and the average lifespan of animals, two students discussed patterns that they observed. So here's Tom's claim. Tom claimed, I see a pattern in the data that shows a relationship between gestation period and the lifespan of the animal. As an animal's gestation period gets longer, the lifespan of the animal gets longer too. Maria commented, it seems there is a better pattern between the size of the animal and the gestation period of the animal. The bigger an animal is, the longer the gestation period it has. Consider each of the students' claims. Determine what information in the data can be used as evidence to support either Tom's or Maria's claim. Be sure to review both graphs carefully. Identify the claim, Tom or Maria's, that is best supported by patterns in the data. Use patterns observed in the data as evidence to support why you chose the claim. Okay, guys, that is the whole TCT. Obviously, we will not be completing this whole thing in one day. We're going to break it apart and we're going to go day by day. So, for today, what I need you guys to do is go through and read this TCT one more time to get a better understanding of what you're going to be completing. And then the actual task that I need to see completed is you're going to get your science journal, which should be located in your drive, and you're going to have a Google Doc that will have these definitions on them. Then what you'll do is you're going to copy and paste these definitions into your journal. Let me show you how that will work. Okay, so what you're going to do is on this assignment, there will be a Google Doc that says Bundles of Joy TCT vocabulary. And the directions say copy and paste these vocabulary words and definitions into your science journal. So you can come over here and you will click and drag to highlight these definitions. On the blue, you can right click and copy and come over to your 4th grade science journal. Come over and I'll have to do this on another page. You can hit insert text box, click and drag. You have your cursor here. You're going to right click and paste. And there's your definitions inside your science journal. Let me show you that one more time. Come over to your Bundles of Joy TCT vocabulary. Click and drag to highlight. Right click, which is 2 fingers. Copy. Come over to the science journal. Insert text box. Click and drag to open up a text box. Cursor is there, ready. 2 fingers to right click and paste. Once you're finished with that, you can insert a text box to add the date. You can, this part over here is already numbered, so you don't have to do anything with that. If you want to do another text box to add the title, this is what mine has, is Bundles of Joy TCT, just to keep myself organized. So let me review what I need you guys to do for today. I want you to open up this TCT. It's a slide. And I want you to go through and read these pages to familiarize yourself with the information. Once you do that, I want you to open up this Bundles of Joy TCT vocabulary, copy, find your science journal, and paste it into your science journal. If you have any questions, just let us know.